Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to episode 11 of the VR Inside podcast. This is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show that is live streamed every Saturday on Nathie's YouTube channel. You can tune into the show live at 4 p.m. in Europe, 3 p.m. in the UK, and 10 a.m. in Central US. And if you missed the podcast for whatever reason, you can catch up with it every Sunday, where I upload the whole video to my own YouTube channel, Virtual Reality Oasis. Or alternatively, if you just want to hear the audio-only version, you can check it out on Google Play Music and on iTunes. So today is a bit of a special episode because we're actually pre-recording the show, so we can have a special guest on the show, and I'll introduce you to him very shortly. So we'll also be around during the live stream on Saturday, so if you want to chat, we will be there to sort of communicate with you guys as well, so you won't be missing out on that at all. So I'm just going to introduce you to everyone in the room. So he likes to hang out with penguins in VR, and that is Nathie.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm wearing your gift. You like it?
Yeah, that looks really, really nice actually. It looks cool, especially with all your Bioshock stuff in the background. Very, very nice.
Thanks for making me a fanboy.
So our next up is in space. You will be able to hear him scream. And that is Zimtok 5.
that does not help my reputation.
Well, if anyone's seen his From Other Suns video, you'll see that he has got some lungs on him. He can really scream, this guy. So I definitely go and check that out.
Took down the alien, so that cleared that problem.
So next up, he has a serious grudge against ring lights for some bizarre reason. He likes to smash them up. It is the rowdy guy.
Yeah, man, they call me rowdy for a reason, right? No ring light is safe in my neighborhood.
Exactly. And then we have John Pell from Gunfire Games. Welcome, John. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very nice to have you on board. And last but not least, myself, the host of the show, Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. So in today's episode, we've got a busy show for you guys. We are talking about the Pimax update. We've got the Vive Focus, the Game Awards, which has got some VR and AR game nominees. Black Friday VR deals is definitely not one to be missed. And we're also going to be talking about Gunfire Games and, of course, their new game, From Other Suns. So I just want to kick off today, obviously, with the Pimax. We tend to talk about the Pimax at the beginning of every show just recently. So if you're getting really bored of the Pimax, let us know, because we'd like to know your comments and feedback. But this is just going to be a very quick one, so do bear with us. But I think it's fairly relevant. So it's been about a week now since the Pimax Kickstarter has ended. So all the backers have funded it. And now they're starting to send out the survey emails. And what that means is that if you've never done a Kickstarter or anything like before, essentially you get a survey email about a week after, and they just ask you to confirm all your sort of shipping details and everything else. So Pimax recently sent out their survey, and it was interesting because they said that if you bought a bundle, which was like the headset, the base stations, and the controller bundle, that the headset would ship earlier. So you'd get the headset around sort of early February, but you're not going to get your base stations or controllers until April. So I was a bit confused about this because they never mentioned this in the initial Kickstarter campaign, that they would have separate shipping timings for the accessories and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people as well would have probably changed their backing, what they backed, because they would have maybe gone for the headset alone and then maybe bought some base stations and controllers for the Vive, because they're obviously going to be compatible. Instead of going all in on the bundle and then having to wait a couple of months until they actually arrive. So what do you guys think about this? Like, I would be really disappointed right now if I'd backed it, the complete bundle, that is.
But did they say that they were going to ship it together with the Pimax, first of all? They never said how they were going to do it.
No, so you can actually choose to ship it with the Pimax, but you have to wait till April, obviously. So you can have the whole package together in April. Jeez. Or you can have the headset in February and wait till your controllers and the base stations arrive in April.
So you can basically choose on whether they're going to ship it or not to you.
So you can choose to have it whether you have the headset early in February, but it'll just be the headset alone, or you can have
Amazon delivery, isn't it? It's like, you know, okay, ship it to me as they're ready, or ship them to me when they're all together. To, you know,
it's
exactly.
Weird.
Who's gonna wait? Who's gonna wait, right? Like, you want your baby headset, your little baby hammerhead shark to arrive. so that you can greet that.
Yeah, but exactly. And I think, you know, for those that kickstarted this, if you wanted the full set, I think if you'd have known this prior to the Kickstarter being finished, you maybe would have just backed the headset alone and then found the Vive controllers and the base stations elsewhere. You know, because then you could have had the whole experience come February when the headset comes out. But now, if you don't have a Vive already, you're kind of screwed in a way.
It must be hard then if you like, because then you'll get that headset. If you want it early, you get that headset, and the only thing you can do with it is like look at it, and that must be hard to do.
I got the same. I got the same with my Sense right now, man. Like I don't have a Bluetooth adapter, so I need to look at my beautiful headset that I can't use. So I totally know the feeling, man. It's horrible. I can only like touch it and then just talk to it in a way, but I can't use it.
Yeah, that's right. Like I've actually had to. I sent Nathie my Bluetooth adapter, so hopefully he'll get that in the next couple of days, so he can actually try it out. Because a bit like me, he really struggled getting the Bluetooth set up initially at first, because you know if your Bluetooth is built into your motherboard, it's not powerful enough to actually communicate with the controllers whilst it's in your case. So you need to attach your external antenna for it to communicate properly. And obviously the antenna for some reason wasn't supplied with Nathie's motherboard, so I sent him mine because they're both Asus boards. So hopefully that will work for him. But yeah, so Nathie, you know that the struggle is real when it comes to having a headset and not being able to use it. And I think a lot of Pimax backers are going to feel that way come early February.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you pre-order it in a way, and you have like certain expectations of when it's getting delivered and how. So yeah, it's a shame in a way. I'm really curious as well how they are going to ship that large amount of headsets. Are they able to handle that? You know, I mean, we have seen Rift struggling as well at the start with the CV1. Like, is that gonna happen again with Pimax? I mean, 50-50, or is it like a higher chance that's gonna happen? I don't know.
I wonder if they like kind of set the scene, right? Because I mean, lots of people that was the kind of make or break case for them. You know, when they were making that critical decision, it's like Rift or Vive. What am I going to pick? And you know, some people were like, well, I can wait. But yeah, the touch controllers came so much later than I think was initially anticipated. And here, it just kind of feels like people have been swindled a little bit, and I can understand that. You know, because the expectation is the things are going to ship together, but. Yeah, it's funny now, especially that the base stations are coming later, because that is a spec, that's a design spec that has been public for what, a year and a half now?
Yep. They have been like advertising it as a full package and not as like, hey, this is like an extra and you can get it later. I like as Mike said, I think they knew that they couldn't ship it all together from the start, so they just kept it under the radar in a way. And then now they really need to tell everyone, because I mean, yeah, you're about to ship everything. So you need to be honest to everyone.
And is there a reason why they ship it later? Because I mean, it's not. I don't think anyone bought a Pimax for their controllers, right? I mean, they buy it for the headset. What is the reason that they're delaying it? Since
so you can still get the headset in February, but you know, unless you own the Vive base stations or controllers, you're not going to be able to use it really. Obviously, with the controllers, they literally just at the end of the campaign announced that it was going to have a trackpad or thumbstick. So they changed the design really late on in the game. So they've got a lot of work to do and a lot of manufacturing and tooling to do. So I can understand why they've delayed it, but the fact that they didn't communicate that clearly at the beginning is a bit disappointing, I think.
Yeah.
Now, before you get away too far from the whole Bluetooth headaches topic, I wanted to bring up something I meant to bring up last week, which is a question. For anyone who's got a Vive, has anyone actually used the Vive tie-in to mobile? What I mean is, it has Bluetooth capability that can alert you to, I think, incoming calls and things like that. I've never even tried it. Nathie, have you given it a go?
No, but I did do some research on that when it launched, and also 6 months later to wait for some updates, you know. But I heard it wasn't that great, like in a way where the connection wasn't coming through that well, and people couldn't hear you. But I don't know, like I haven't really tried it, so this is based on the internet, and you know, the internet can be a very mixed place of opinions. So.
I suppose the nearest kind of component that's like that is probably the Oculus Rift.
It's a nice feature, but I don't know. I have never really heard anyone using it. When I bought my Vive, I was like, wow, I can even call with this thing. You know, it's really the future. But in the end, I never used it. So,
well, there's also the knock, like this, like knock knock. So if you're in VR on the Vive.
Oh, the
I don't know if it has an equivalent where you've got like a software button on the screen, and your wife or whatever can walk in and like push a button to basically give you a knock in the headset. Like that's literally, they patched that in shortly after launch. And I always wondered, like, who's using that? I mean, maybe it's useful to like one dude out in like Tallahassee, but
I tried that once and it didn't work for me. Like I tried it, I didn't hear a knock. Maybe I set it up wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is the thing I never understand. Like, there's these lovely things, and maybe John can say this, but like when you're developing software, right? You have to kind of look at the kind of 70-30 of like who's going to actually use this function. Should we really develop it? You know, is it something that makes sense to kind of put out there? Because there's so many features like this that you see them spending time and resources on. You just wonder, like, who was thinking this was a good idea?
I think with like especially with Valve, I think they do a lot of just let's try something, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. Especially like with the Vive, so like that would be cool. What, you know, I'm sure it was like a group of people were like that would be cool, and then they just went off and did it, and like cool, it shipped with it. Or hey, what if we did this? And yeah, like you guys are saying, if nobody's using it, they're probably just like, well, why bother supporting it?
Yeah. To be fair, though, that's how the VR market probably started, right? Well, let's just try this.
A lot of research is being done in that way. Like, I mean, they start off with trying something, and sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, I heard this story once about like sticky notes. There was this guy who said like, oh yeah, we tried developing a glue, and you know, the glue doesn't work. You know, and he presented it on like on the conference, and there was a company in there. He said, well, we're actually looking for a glue that doesn't work that well, and so the sticky note was born.
What? Wow. Yeah, that's true. That's a true story.
Yeah.
They were trying to create, I think it was on a military contract in the US. They were trying to create like the strongest glue possible. And they came up with this variant, which was like the weakest glue possible. And it ended up selling like
a Post-it note. Bizarre.
But we're seeing that in VR right now, aren't we? I mean, like we're seeing that right around the place. Like what control scheme doesn't work, what hardware feels wrong, like all that kind of stuff. We're going through that right now.
Yeah. So like I want to say one last thing about like the Pimax, because like usually when you want to build up the hype for a product that launches, I see some companies also like doing a video on where they go to the factory and you see them like getting made. Like has Pimax already started making those HMDs or those controllers? Are they ready to go or not? I know this is like you guys can't really give an answer on this, but like, there's you don't know, but
I agree. Like a video like that would put a lot of people's mind at rest. I think, you know, especially with this recent announcement that you're gonna have to wait. I think some reassurance from them that they're gonna be shipping out the headsets early February would be very reassuring in a way. But what I would say is that if you've backed to Pimax and you want the controllers and the base stations, I would start looking for them now, because come January, February time, they're going to be rare as hen's teeth to get rid of these, to get hold of these things. So I would start looking now to get Vive controllers and base stations. But I'd be interested to know what John, like, if any of your team interested in the Pimax, or if you sort of looked at it in any way, or are you just not interested in sort of looking at this as a device?
It seems interesting for sure. I mean, it's really where all of our games have been published by Oculus, so it's kind of like we're kind of in a way tied to that hardware. But all the virtual reality stuff that comes out is really interesting to see. Just kind of see what the level of interest is. Where, you know, if it's one thing, is this the thing? A lot of people, I'm sure, are asking, is this the thing that's going to bring everybody in, or is this just another split from the kind of already standard? So it's interesting to watch for sure. Definitely kind of hang back for now.
Yeah, definitely, especially like because we've discussed this before, you know, that it seems like the whole industry are going towards mobile, whereas Pimax seems to be the only one that's really pushing forward in terms of like real enthusiast level VR. Yeah. So like, you know, Oculus and Vive are very sort of focused on the mobile market right now. So it is interesting.
I think it's great.
Sorry, they're focused externally.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we know publicly. That's not necessarily what's happening in the R&D shop. So just
that is
a very different thing.
But what I mean, it's nice to see that a company like Pimax can bring in so much money with the promise of making a next gen headset. I mean, that means that there is a lot of interest, right?
Yeah,
even from current, because I assume that a lot of the backers are people that actually already own a headset, or I mean, I don't know, of course, but from what I've heard from people is that a lot of people already own a headset and they just want like the next step up.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, like the numbers, like that's also a thing. Yeah, like you don't really know how many people really like bought one. You also got companies that just buy like 200 of those. You know, so it's like, yeah, is everyone like, let's say, Survivor and like pre-ordering one, or are there also companies that say like, yeah, you just do me like 20 of those, and or like maybe buying some themselves? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Nathan makes a good point on stats and stats inflation. I can imagine the number of Windows MR headsets being inflated just because it's got Microsoft's name against it. You know, that is a fair amount of padding if we were to look at their statistics. You know, similarly, I would say that how many businesses buy a PSVR, right? I mean, they've crossed 1 million in terms of headsets sold. That's a great figure. Don't think there's too many businesses out there other than like web cafes, you know, buying that up. The business applications for PlayStation aren't large.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, going back to obviously, you know, the focus on mobile, it kind of ties us in nicely with the Vive focus, which is a standalone headset from HTC. Obviously, you know, they've recently announced some more information about it at a show earlier on in the week. So they're actually ditching the plan to release a Daydream headset. They were going to sort of partner up with Google and release a Daydream headset together with them, but they're no longer going to be doing that now. And they haven't ruled it out in future, but right now their focus is on their own product and their own platform. So the Vive Focus, just to go through the specs just very quickly, is going to have a Snapdragon 835 processor, an AMOLED screen, 2 front-facing cameras to do inside-out tracking, very similar to how the Windows mixed reality platform works. It's actually got a physical IPD adjustment wheel, which is a very nice implementation. It has got a headphone jack, so you can use your own audio, but it also has built-in audio, very similar to the Oculus Go in that it's got slots in the head strap, which channel audio down from the headset itself, which is a nice feature. It's got a micro USB port for charging it up, and then it features 6 degrees of freedom from the headset itself, which is very interesting because the Oculus Go has 3 degrees of freedom from the headset and a 3 degrees of freedom controller, whereas the Vive Focus has 6 degrees of freedom with the headset and 3 degrees of freedom with the controller. So that's kind of a little... Well,
that's what I want to know. Like, what's the technology behind that? Because when I read that, I was super cynical about it. But, like, is that under wraps or do we know anything?
No, so it's the 2 front-facing cameras that are going to provide that. So it's a bit like the Windows mixed reality platform. That's how it uses the tracking with these 2 front-facing cameras. So that's how the Vive Focus is going to do the same thing. We don't have any indication of price or release, but you know, compared to the Oculus Go that's going to launch at $199, it's got to have to be aggressively priced to compete in that market, I think.
It's kind of technically spec'd. I'll bet you it'll come out for $399.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not competing with the Go because they are like focusing on the Asian market only.
That's true.
You know, it's not coming to Europe or like America. So and that's the thing. Like when I saw the release of like the because there was a live stream. You know, they announced it through a live stream, and when I first saw the headset, I was like, I don't know, is this like a headset for kids in a way? You know, it looks kind of like a rubbery thing that you can throw around, you know? Like the design, I don't really like it that much. But let's say from a European perspective, people are like, yeah, nah, that's too bulky. But from an Asian perspective, it actually fits like the style, what people like there. You get it? Like, I really have the feeling that that's weighing in a way. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just but I think so.
I saw a picture on Facebook of like where someone compared the Vive Focus to one of those Crocs shoes, and it really looks like it. It really does. I don't know why, but it really does.
Like, dude, if you're gonna wear it on a video, people say like, "How did you get the Vive Focus? Did you import it or something?" No, I just bought it at a shoe store, man.
Yeah, so like Nathie said, it looks like they're just going to be focusing on the Asian market at launch. But, I'd imagine eventually it will be coming to the West when we'll all be able to check it out. But yeah, it will be interesting because this is like the direct competition to the Go, right? So we've kind of got this battle for mobile VR as well coming, which is going to be very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, like Oculus said at their Oculus Connect event, they've got their sort of VR enthusiast level, which is the Rift. Same here, they've got their VR enthusiast level with the Vive, and then they've got the Focus for the on-the-goers, as they refer to them.
But it's only China. Only, it's not even the entire Asian market. I presume it's only China. Well, Is that like a test that they're testing out the device there before they like go worldwide, or what is the, or do they really not intend to? Huh?
I don't think it's a test. I mean, like HTC has like a really good like market in like China. You know, like they got a really big HQ there. You know, they do a lot of events there. They work together with all kinds of companies and developers. So I think like launching it there, like I think they have been advertising this for a while there now. I mean, we haven't seen the advertisement, but I think they have been hyping this up for a while now.
So they don't even consider bringing this to the Western market.
I don't really see this thing as like a Western. Then they need to make something else, because I don't have the feeling this, like design wise at least.
Well, they just make it black, Nathie. That would sell it. It doesn't have to be any other. I mean, the garish kind of blue color is maybe off-putting, right?
But that's
I think
the
it would
thing,
be the same thing to the American market. But the way, like China as a market can stand on its own. And the other thing that I would say is there are other VR headsets that we haven't talked about on this podcast yet that are exclusively in Asia.
Yeah,
you know, that are competitors, direct competitors to the Rift and Vive, and the kind of footprint there. I'd be very interested to look at the numbers. Who's winning in that market? Because I bet you it's very different to who's winning here.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Because when I looked at the statistics, they had like a pie chart of the different VR headsets that sold, and there was some brands on there that were bigger than Oculus over there that I'd never even heard of.
It could be that just much more people buy VR there. I mean, maybe 70% of the market is there anyway. Then
we need an Asian correspondent. If you would like, please write to.
But there's one thing, like I think the Vive Focus will have some success there because they have been linking it to VivePart since the start. Like they have VivePart running for a while. This is like exclusively working together with VivePart as well. So I think a lot of people there use VivePart. You know, like here we're like, hey, give us Steam. You know, give us Oculus Home. Give us some more platforms than only one. But there, it's like I think people are really like attached to VivePart there. At least people that used the Vive before. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like that this is kind of the way things are going in a way, because I like the idea of having a headset on the go. Because like, you know, I've got so many friends and family that I'd love to show VR to, but I just can't get them to where my PC is in my little Smeagol cave area.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm imagining the breadcrumbs leading into your game, like
exactly. Yeah, man. So having a mobile headset on the go, you know, that's completely standalone, that you don't need a phone for, because I'm like an Apple fanboy, so I don't have an Android phone, so I never got into the Gear VR scene. But having the Oculus Go or something like this, you know, would be ideal to take to a party or something like that and get all my friends on the hype train for VR. But John, like, I don't know, you know, what you can say about this, because, you know, you've been involved with Oculus for some time now. And I think, am I right in saying that Dead and Buried was kind of a demo for the Oculus Go? Or was it shown off in any way?
I mean, it was a full-fledged game, but it was definitely meant. That's why if you bought, I think at the time, if you bought a Touch, you got it free. So it was basically kind of like the pack-in game, because it was a social game and it was like a touch game. So it was definitely like, let's get this out to as many people as possible. So it's a chance for like everybody to play it and try it. So yeah.
Do you think you'll be making like a port of this on the go or anything like that, or are you looking at that product to develop games for in the future, or is it something you can't really talk about?
I mean, I can't really say too much. I mean, the other thing too is it's unlike Chronos or even From Other Suns. Like we came on to Dead and Buried, and it was like kind of an internal project they had been working on for a while. So it's like it's up to Oculus at that point if they want to bring us back to do some cool stuff with it. You know. Yeah. We're always open to that because we love working with them, but it's kind of it's like an Oculus IP at this point.
Will the control scheme work in that game? Because isn't it a single controller, or am I wrong about that? Oculus Touch, Oculus Go.
Oh, Oculus Go. Yeah, it's a kind of a small singular controller, but I'm sure
you could still do a quick draw or something with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you wouldn't be able to like do the dual wielding, but you definitely could. I could see a way doing it with a single controller.
Quick draw could be fun.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Look, you're already selling Zim a copy.
I know. Well,
hey, I played the other one. I had loads of fun. Actually, it was some of the best Wild Wild West stuff that I've actually touched. And I think for some reason, Wild Wild West goes down very well in VR. Like the multiplayer was really good, especially when you had like trains passing and stuff like that. So something like that in VR. I mean, again, the thing that I like to think back to is GoldenEye. You know, when I was a teenager, that was the thing that we went from house to house playing, and just fucking loved that. Any game that can captivate that kind of gameplay on the go, even headset to headset. I don't know if they've got any standalone headset to standalone headset networking. If they did, that would be a dream.
Dude, this is like the beginning of like handheld VR. Like this has been gone for a while, where you had like your Nintendo DS or like Advance, and you were like, "Hey, do you have a cable as well?" You know, yeah. Let's
remember, I met my wife with a Nintendo DS, so I've proven the fact that wireless handheld gaming works very well.
You've actually just proven that you're both nerds, you know.
That too.
That roast. But no, I think it's interesting with all those specs of like the Go and also the Focus. Like it will be so much easier for people to join up at like a certain location and play a game against each other in a way, wireless. So yeah, that's going to be nice.
And even something like VR chat would be such a nice application for a platform like that. You know, like me and Nathie jumped into VR chat with Rowdy and Lonely Viper as well, like recently, and we just had such a blast playing VR chat. Like it's the craziest place. I'd never been in it before, and I just like opened my eyes to the world of VR chat. Like it was the maddest place ever. But like something like that on a mobile platform would bring so many more people to the platform, and it would make it really vibrant community there. So that would be really, really cool as well. So I'm excited about the social aspect of mobile VR as well.
Dude, that's crazy. Like you buy a headset for maybe like $200 and you open it and suddenly you're like smoking a cigarette with a penguin, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's the dream right there.
There's other things we can get in there right now, Nathie, but
they should just take that clip of you saying that and put that in their like trailer for the headset. You can smoke cigarettes with a penguin. Like what more do you want in life? Yeah, exactly. So moving on then from obviously the Vive focus to the Game Awards. So the Game Awards are coming and they've got nominees for the best VR and AR games. So here are the nominees. Obviously you can go and vote yourself, and I'll put a link in the description down below so you can go and cast your vote. But here are the nominees for the VR and AR games. So we've got Super Hot, we have got Star Trek Bridge Crew, we've got Lone Echo and Echo Arena. They're kind of bundled into one vote. We've got Farpoint, and we've got Resident Evil 7. So out of those 5 titles, one by one, I'll go around the room. Which one would you choose to be your best VR AR game for 2017? So I think I'll go with Nathie first.
Repeat them one more time.
Super Hot, Star Trek Bridge Crew, Lone Echo and Echo Arena, Farpoint, and Resident Evil 7.
Ooh, that's tough, right?
Yeah, that's tough.
For me, it's like or Super Hot or Farpoint, because I think Farpoint is like the underdog here for sure. Because Farpoint was like the first game for the PlayStation VR with like an aim controller, and it worked really well. Yeah, that one. Yeah,
it's so cool. It's so cool.
Same gut one. That was like
awesome.
It works so well.
It works incredibly well. The gun presence is better than anything else. Yeah. Well, I don't know, Rowdy. Have you tried this?
Yeah, I did like 6 videos on Farpoint or something.
Oh, you did? And how does it compare to the rigging that you use with the Vive controllers?
The Pro Tube.
Well, I haven't really like played that much with the Pro Tube yet, but it's not. I would still say that the Farpoint controller is better because it's a controller itself, and with the Pro Tube you still need to like put the things in. You have more flexibility with the Pro Tube though. You can like get like all the things out, and you can like reload manually, and you can like throw grenades. So you have more flexibility in that way. But in terms of like control schemes and like just ease of use, I really think that the Farpoint controller is really nice. The thing with PlayStation, of course, is mostly forward facing. You don't have any enemies coming from your back. Also in Farpoint, not anywhere I played at least.
You do. Not often.
I do. You
have the little crab guys come at you from behind you. Depends on how fast you're going through it, though, because they do.
Okay.
Yeah. If you
and also if you play multiplayer.
That's right. Yeah. But in the end, it was a front-facing thing. But yeah, going back to what I voted, I already voted. So I mean, I'm saying something that I don't really need to like. That's the thing. But I voted for Super Hot. But if we start talking about like Farpoint again, maybe I kind of regret my vote in a way. But I don't know, like, yeah.
If Super Hot wins, I quit. I quit VR.
I know.
You didn't like.
We've discussed this before. Yeah,
we have.
But I like, for me, like, I think Farpoint nailed it down with like a new controller, but Super Hot really pushed VR forward in a way.
What about you, Rowdy?
It's a hard. I mean, I really like Super Hot as well, just because of the game mechanics. I think it's a really cool title, but. I'm not gonna. I haven't voted yet, so I haven't done that yet. But I think, I mean, I'm always saying on like pretty much every video and every live stream and every podcast, I always say, oh, I really want like more single player experiences that have like a good storyline. And out of those, you have basically Farpoint and Lone Echo. And Lone Echo also has a great multiplayer with the Echo Arena. So I think my vote actually goes to Lone Echo. I think that's
nice.
It's a great single player experience, great graphics, great storytelling, great character development. It's basically, I mean, it's quite short maybe, what you expect from a single player experience. Although I still did I still haven't finished uploading all the videos. I finished the game now though. Smashed my ring light while playing it. But yeah, I think that's what my vote goes to. Lone Echo.
Okay, cool.
Really good, isn't it? I mean, I think that just to touch on that as well. I felt that the first, say, 2 hours of gameplay in Lone Echo is probably some of the best like cinematography in a game, and definitely the nearest to human experience I've had with a non-human. Yeah. That character who you're a robot, but the character you're dealing with, what's her name? I can't remember.
Alicia Rhodes.
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Alicia Rhodes. Yeah.
Is that the actress or voice artist?
That's her name, Captain Rhodes, Alicia Rhodes.
Oh, Captain Rhodes. That's why I didn't recognize the first name. We weren't on a first name basis.
I got to know her
pretty well. Did you
talk
to the devs? Did you guys get a little bit of background scenes?
I was taking notes.
But it was special. Yeah, it was special.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's the thing. What I noticed is that, how do you really vote? Like, Rowdy votes because he wants the story. You know, he wants games that have a good story. I'm like, I like story too, but I also want to have games that, for example, with like Doom soon and Skyrim and Fallout, they push VR forward in a way. So I think that Super Hot also had like an effect on that. But that's it. Like, everyone has like their own reason to like vote on a certain title, you know? Like, let's say if I played Resident Evil, I'm like scared of horror games. I would never vote on that one because I'm too scared for that stuff. You get my point? So it's
I agree. I mean, I love Super Hot, and I think it's still up to date. One of my favorite games, I think, and games that I just just jump in just to have like some fun, just because the mechanics are so cool.
We also played Star Trek. I mean, we also played Star Trek together. It was really funny, but in the end, it's not a game I came back to in a way, you know. Or so it's kind of like, it's a mix of like different like things.
So, what's your vote, Zim?
I like the other guys. I had trouble thinking it through, so I was actually leaning towards Lone Echo at the beginning when you posed the question, but I've settled somewhere else. Super Hot. Although I appreciate its merits, I don't think it's, deep enough in experience, or I suppose I don't share Nathie's opinion that it's pushing VR forward. I think it's a good demo, but beyond that, some of the scenes are cool, and I don't think it's a backward step. But Bridge Crew doesn't belong on the list, in my opinion. I think that was I think it's got the Star Trek name. They did a decent job of giving us 4-player co-op. I think From Other Suns does it 10 times better. So in terms of picking, I'm going to back the winning horse here, because Resident Evil 7 and the feckin' PlayStation market is going to win this vote. Go on, guys, because it was not only a great single player that had the right texture right the way throughout, the atmosphere was right. The DLC, which is normally just cash-in, was actually separate games, independent, totally playable, some of them replayable ad infinitum, that were really, really positive experiences. I was a bit reticent going into it. There's a room escape game, there's a repeatable survival game, there's a card game, and all of it carries the same nasty flavor of Resident Evil. Yeah. The only thing that I don't like about Resident Evil, which would pull me back in the other direction, is that it's inconsistent. It felt like two different dev studios made the first half and the second half of the game. Like halfway through, it kind of does this funny switch up, just like what happened in Alien Isolation, where you're like really into the experience. And then all of a sudden the tone changes. It's like, well, hang on, now I'm playing a console game, whereas before I was in a movie, you know? So that's the only thing that made it, to me, feel a little bit disjointed. But I've got to say, the total package, it's like 5 games in one.
The problem that I have a little bit with Resident Evil, and I think that some people has that as well, is that if you look at the other games that are in this list, they're games that were developed solely for VR. All of
it's
the
a
games,
fair point.
All of the games in there, and I respect Resident Evil a lot for bringing that title, which is, I mean, they did it basically like just to tease us a little bit, I guess, to bring that also to VR. Of course, you know, it's not with the Move controllers. It's just with the controller that you play it. That's
another good point.
That's another.
Those are two very good counterpoints, Rowdy, I have to say. So,
and that is for me the reason why. But I think it's great that when other developers that normally make PC games also bring their title like add a VR mode or add like a playable in VR mode. I think that's great, and for that alone, it already deserves to be nominated or maybe even win.
I mean, compared to all those other titles, like Resident Evil was like the biggest hit of all.
Yeah,
like the hype of that was like humongous. Like on social media everywhere, like I'm playing Resident Evil now. Everyone wanted to tell other VR enthusiasts, I'm playing this game right now. You know, so like
still not the scariest game I've ever played in VR though.
Yeah, I think we'll come to that shortly. So John, what about you? If you had to choose a game from that list, I know it's a difficult one. What would you choose?
I don't know. I feel like Lone Echo and Echo Arena together really makes a super compelling like argument, just because you have two very different experiences, and it's kind of like almost like a cheat code, because it's like, wow, this one is totally a esports kind of game, and this other one's is very in-depth story game, and both of them are really good. But from a kind of go back to perspective, I definitely like Super Hot. I think that one just felt really good. I like that it was, I mean, it was similar to the PC one, but it was a completely different experience, which I thought was really cool. Like it wasn't like Resident Evil. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like you could play it the same way either way, which it's super impressive that they even were able to get it running in VR on the PlayStation. But there's something about like they went in and actually change the game up, and the kind of the feel, and I mean it still felt like Super Hot, but it felt right for the controllers, and it just had a really cool feel to it, and it was something I wanted to keep coming back to, just because I guess it's maybe it's the run based nature of the game. It's just like I can play a little bit, cool, I'm good, and it's just like, oh, I'm going to try it again, or have a really good run of like 4 or 5 times. So that gets my vote.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you and Nathie on that as well. Like, it gets my vote as well. And, you know, I know that we all have different opinions, but I think that's great in a way, because it's great to have different opinions on things. But I sort of echo your reasoning behind it, and that's just the way it made me feel. It just made me feel like a total badass.
Let me just zoom in on Zim for a moment there, because I can see the disappointment.
Yeah, I might have won. I might have lost the battle. I'm going to win the war. You just watch, guys. 1 million PlayStation players, and trust me, a chunk of those played Resident Evil. But I, you know me, I don't go for popular vote. I just think that's a characteristic that happens to be there. And also, I don't think a lot of people played the DLC, but they're really missing out on. Yeah. So if you do have it and you haven't played the DLC, Rowdy, then give it a shot, because it's very, very good quality.
Yeah. And this brings me on to a really nice segue, because if you don't have any of these headsets, now is the perfect time to buy a headset, because Black Friday is coming, and we have got some amazing Black Friday VR deals coming very, very soon. So check this out, right? The Oculus Rift will be available with the Touch Bundle for $350 from Best Buy and Newegg. That's going to be available from the 23rd of November to the 25th. So if you're looking for a Rift, that is an amazing deal. The HTC Vive is going to be available for $599, and that's with the deluxe audio strap and Fallout 4. And that's going to be available from the 24th to the 27th of November. Then we've got Windows mixed reality headsets. They're going to be running a big sort of discount on Black Friday for their line of headsets as well. There's going to be up to $100 off. They're going to be available on the Microsoft Store, and that's going to be starting from the 23rd, running to the 27th. also the Samsung one. So it doesn't say exactly how much it's going to be off, but it will tell you.
I'm going to send it back.
Send it back in a discount.
Money back. What is this?
So we don't know the exact discount for each headset, but they just say up to 100 USD off the range. So they're not specific about which headset gets the most money off, but up to $100 off one of them. So that would be really nice. And especially because like right now, we literally found out just this week that now you don't have to wait till December to play Steam VR on your Windows Mixed Reality headset. There is actually a way to do it right now. So they've brought it forward somehow. I don't know how, but they have. And also, I've read this week and saw a video on YouTube of someone playing Oculus titles using Revive with the Windows Mixed Reality platform as well. So that kind of changes things up a little bit.
It's like next level. It's like 3 stages of things you go through.
Yeah, so, you know, although, like, you know, I think I've been clear on previous episodes, I'm not a massive fan of the Windows Mixed Reality platform. It's certainly making it look a little bit more attractive in a way, but I think there's still some big barriers to entry here. But we'll see.
One big barrier. You have been talking about that to me last week, that you said that not every game works with the mixed reality headset when you are on Steam VR.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it was Upload or a similar, it might have been Road to VR. I'm not quite sure which publication it was, but basically they said that they tried Gorn. They had access to the Steam VR library. They tried Gorn with the Windows Mixed Reality headset and it didn't work. And it wasn't clear whether that was the button mappings weren't synced up to the controllers, so they couldn't get it to work properly, or whether the game just didn't work properly. We just don't quite know that detail yet. But it looks as though you have to implement Windows Mixed Reality sort of SDK in your game for it to be compatible on the Steam store. So that is another thing. You know, we all assumed that Steam VR titles would work straight out of the box, but we don't think that's the case now.
I just saw a thread on Reddit today, Mike, talking exactly about that. Some of the lead developers talking about the fact that there are DLL libraries, I believe, that are associated with Windows MR that are not supported in Unity builds, for instance. So like what you said there, it looks like there's a kind of a stark incompatibility unless you are building strictly for that. And you have to kind of recode aspects of your game to be able to make it work. So another barrier to entry.
But if you've been holding out for one, then, you know, if you're really desperate to get one, then, you know, now's a good time to get one.
Yeah, that's
also, PSVR has got some very nice deals.
Great deals on PSVR,
this is a great deal. This is like a PS4 1 terabyte version and a PSVR headset for $500. Like, that is a pretty sweet deal.
That is amazing.
That's the straight version, not the Pro.
That's the straight version, not the Pro. So you're getting vanilla PSVR and you're getting a PS4 with a 1 terabyte drive in it. But that's $500 for like you're straight into VR.
A full VR setup, huh? A full VR setup.
Yeah, then you're ready to go.
€500. It's probably better still than the Windows Mixed Reality ones. I mean,
so it gets even better than that in a way.
Definitely better.
You've got the Skyrim bundle, so that comes out on the 17th of November. That's going to have the PSVR, a PlayStation. So actually, no, I don't think this comes with a PlayStation. Actually, I think this is just the PSVR headset. Yeah. So it comes with a PSVR headset, a PlayStation camera, 2 Move controllers, Skyrim, and that's $450. So that's a pretty good deal if you've already got a PS4. And then
that's a great entry if you've got a PS4 or Pro.
Yeah. And then obviously, if you want to hold on a little bit longer, from the 1st of December, you'll be able to play that bundle, but with Doom VFR instead. So $449, but with Doom VFR is part of the bundle. So again, a very, very nice deal.
That's going to bring a lot of people in, into VR.
Oh yeah,
that's the kind of price that like kids spend on, like, you know, a Christmas present or something. Huh? That's a perfectly normal price. They see all those VR videos. They all want to play VR, and this is the ideal gift now. Huh? Yeah. I mean, don't forget with the Vive and with the Oculus and some of the other ones, you still need a full PC. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, like the PlayStation VR is like a really appealing thing. You know, they got a nice box, and kids love that. They are more attracted to like a console thing. It looks much cooler. You know, got all the lights.
Great games.
I gotta say another thing though about PlayStation VR as a platform. As a guy who runs the 3 headsets, right? I do Rift, Vive, and PSVR. PSVR has one material valuable difference that I didn't realize joining the platform, but I've only learned it talking to devs. And that's that they set the bar really high in terms of everything from loading scenes and all that, having to hit the 90 frames a second. So what it means is, if a title that I play on Rift or Vive is running a little bit choppy, I can be guaranteed that maybe slightly lower resolution, but it'll run like butter on the PSVR. So there are some titles where I say, actually, I want to do that on PSVR instead. So there might be an impression out there, there was that I had before I got one, that it wouldn't be as capable a VR headset. But I have to say, slight resolution differences aside, you're trading resolution for field of view, really, between the two, because it's got better field of view. It is a very capable, headset. And the only thing that I would say is, if you're thinking, ooh, will I spend the extra, I don't know what it is, $50 to get a PS4 Pro to drive that? There's a lot of games out there, things like Thumper and that, really good, bright, colorful games, high energy, high active action, that really leverage the additional resolution or graphical fidelity with the Pro. So also, if you are thinking, hey, let me go into the VR space, then consider getting yourself a Pro and not necessarily going cheap and cheerful.
And also, I mean, resolution is one thing, but image clarity on the PlayStation VR it's phenomenal. I find that if I put because I before the PSVR actually came out, I was doubting, like, am I going to get this? And I got a chance to try one out, and I was just blown away by how little of the screen door effect that you actually see, because they use those like sub-pixels. It's really a great image that you get in that headset. I really have to, and indeed, like, resolution-wise, it's less, but in terms of image clarity, it's. I find
as long as you have like the sweet spot. That's the thing with the headset. Like, you need to find the sweet spot, and then if you found it, then it's great, But to be honest with you, Zim, like, I played with the casual PlayStation as well for a couple of months. Then I switched to the Pro.
I did the same.
Of course, like, let's say if you got the extra money, do it. If you do not have the money, or you're like, well, that's gonna be tricky because I also need to spend my money on other stuff, and then it's not a huge difference. Not like
it's like a 20% difference. It was originally like 10, and then they sharper. And more developers use the breathing performance in the Pro now.
But let's say if you are new to VR and you try a PlayStation VR for the first time, then you don't even, you're not like, well, I could have gotten the Pro because it was sharper, But I think this is an amazing deal for consumers, but also for Bethesda in the end, because they have been having a great year, of course, because of all those titles, like reinventing them in a way.
Yeah.
I still think that Skyrim might have some issues in a way. I mean, it's really surprising how they were able to get it working in VR. It's a very old game. Doom has been built from the ground up for VR. So if I would pick one of the three, I would go for Doom, and then Fallout, and then Skyrim. Skyrim is so old. It's such an old game.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I ran a poll on my Twitter a couple of days ago to see what the general interest was. I got about maybe 200 votes or something, and Skyrim came out on top with 40% of people who wanted to try it.
But that has not only to do with they want to have it's an open world, and Doom isn't, for example. But it's also Skyrim has a much bigger name than Doom. Let's say Doom for old school people, it's like, oh yeah, Doom. But when you get new gamers, it's fanboy.
But in terms of bringing people into any kind of VR setup, it's Skyrim.
Yeah, it's Skyrim.
Yeah.
It's funny because so are you saying, Nathie, from a performance perspective, that you expect Skyrim might have some challenges on PSVR, or is it rather
it's
total game experience?
Like in VR, you don't want to notice any render distance things and stuff like that. I have the feeling you will notice that it's just playing around with the graphics and stuff like that. I played it at Gamescom, and back then they turned off the puzzles in the first dungeon. You were in a dungeon, first of all, you were not in the open world. So they were really playing on save back then. So, and that was like a month or two ago. And everyone said yeah, but that's an old demo. Yeah, so if you got a new demo, you can also show it off, right? But they do have walking loco, they do have teleportation. So that's really nice. It's just that, I don't know, we will see what it's gonna bring. Bethesda is known for making very nice open world games, and there are always funny bugs where you're stuck on a horse on the top of a mountain,
But that's part
things
of it.
like
That's
that.
part of it.
Yeah. With Fallout, where you're I almost got the boss, and then you're suddenly getting stuck because of a bug, But
I do
no,
really,
we'll see.
I do really applaud Bethesda for bringing a title as challenging as Skyrim to a completely new platform. I mean, they're doing it to multiple platforms actually. They're also bringing it to the Switch, the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's and
See
Doom
a
as
lot
well.
of that actually, don't we? So like L.A. Noire, right? There's another one that was delayed, but the titles that are developed for the Switch and developed for VR, it's almost like they're like, oh, we're going to do that platform, we're going to do this one as well. It just seems they seem to be going hand in hand, which makes me want even more. There was a graphic that circulated on the internet about 4 months ago, which showed a headset that would snap in the Switch, and my God, that excited me because again, we talked about. The Switch is just such a driving force, and I don't think we've talked about it too much here, but we love the Switch in my household, and it is something that if they could do a VR headset with that, I think it would do very good things for the VR market.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm a massive fan of the Switch as well. But yeah, so that they are your Black Friday deals. You know, if you're going to buy a VR and you want to get into VR right now, now is the best time to get a VR headset, whether it be the Windows Mixed Reality one, the PSVR, the Rift, or the Vive. You know, they're all great headsets in their own right. So, you know, just choose which one you want and go for it. But moving on now, obviously, to why our special guest is here, John Pearl from Gunfire Games. We're going to be talking about Gunfire Games and From Other Suns. So, John, Gunfire Games, obviously, they're no stranger to VR titles. This is going to be your third title now, is that right?
Fifth, actually.
Fifth title, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is you're like VR veterans in the space when it comes to developing VR games, because I don't know any other developers that have made so many games for VR. So, how did sort of Gunfire get into the VR space, and what kind of pushed you in that direction from the beginning?
Well, I don't know if many people know our history, but a lot of us came from Vigil Games, where we worked on Darksiders 1 and 2, and from there we were owned by THQ. THQ went out of business. We were closed down, and Crytek kind of swooped in and brought in a group of us to make Crytek USA. They went through some financial problems, and we just kind of said, all right, let's just be masters of our own fate kind of thing, and just decided to start up Gunfire Games. And from the time when we were at Vigil, Jason Rubin was he came in at the end of THQ to try to salvage the ship at that point, and he was the president of THQ. But obviously now he's at Oculus, so he kind of reached out to us and said, hey, you want to come out to the Oculus office and check out what we're doing? And at that point, we didn't really have a solid plan to do with, we just knew like, hey, you know what, let's make our own fate. So we kind of went out there, and I personally was really blown away. I know the other guys were really impressed too. They showed us like a single 2 rooms. I think it was from Hero Bound, which was called, I forget, a VR Adventure at the time. Right. And it was for the Gear VR, and I was just, at that point, I'd only seen the original like Kickstarter Oculus, and just kind of all the weird like Half-Life hacks to make it work. And I was just kind of like, this is kind of weird. It's kind of making me. But then just seeing that was just amazing. Like just being able to like look around in this room, and it was like, hey, look, it's just like Zelda, but it looks like it's really there. Yeah. So I think that just got us really excited, and kind of got our foot in the door with them. So yeah, we did. What was it? Hero Bound, First Steps, then Spirit Champion for the Gear as well, and then we also did a version of it for the Rift launch. Then we did Chronos, and then worked with the Oculus directly to do Dead and Buried, and then obviously now From Other Suns. Yeah. Yeah, so like I've played Chronos, I've played Dead and Buried, and I've obviously played From Other Suns as well. So when it came to obviously the very beginning, like breaking off and becoming your own studio, that must have been quite a scary thing for you guys. Was it quite scary at the time, or did it feel quite natural and quite comfortable, the right thing to do, or were you a bit unsure at the time? It was a little of all that. It was kind of like, well, we keep ending up in like this other, like I kind of said, our own fate. Like we're kind of at the whim of whatever the parent company was doing to us at the time, or what they were doing with their other business ventures. Like Darksiders 2 sold really well, but THQ bet really bad on the UDraw platform. So they lost a ton of money there. So it's kind of like, well, we can give it our own stab, because a lot of us have been working together since Darksiders 1. So I've worked with this group for over 10 years, almost 11, I think now, years. So it's like we got a good like core team going here. So we're like, hey, we can make this happen. We know how to make games. So, but yeah, it was at first it's like, well, okay, we're not going to get paid for a little bit until we get something signed. So let's hustle. Let's get something signed. So luckily, you know, it worked out timing well with Oculus because they were kind of ramping into the whole development thing of like, hey, we want to find games for this, you know, platform. This is our big thing now.
Yeah.
So that just, I think it was just timing worked out really well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, like Chronos definitely was like one of the must-have titles when the Rift first came out, because there wasn't a massive library of games, but it was one of the standout ones that was like, it had a lot of length, you know, there was a long game, you know, you could really sink some hours into it. And then obviously when Dead and Buried came out with the touch controllers, that was really good timing as well. Like you say, it was like a really fun multiplayer game. You know, like Zim said earlier, the quick draw mode was like a ton of fun playing with people online. And now obviously you've got From Other Suns coming, you know, that is out now. And again, feels kind of like this epic adventure that you can kind of embark on with your friends. So how did the sort of concept From Other Suns come about, and what sort of made the team sort of choose that as a title that they wanted to work on, like a co-op experience, you know, sailing through the stars and finding your own adventure?
Yeah, I think it's like the just kind of natural fit. It felt like for VR to do something that's kind of this big open universe people want, because we read Reddit, we read the posts, and we kind of could see what people were wanting. A lot of it at the time was like, even like at the time, like with Chronos, it's you said it's meant to be like a longer story, a longer game, longer sessions. But a lot of games that were coming out were more like super quick session based, which is totally cool. But it definitely seemed like people wanted a bigger chunk of content that they could kind of come back to, or a place that they could come back to and feel like they're doing a lot of stuff. And it's really like, I guess it's partially, you know, there's like this move of like the you know, Facebook owning or being Oculus basically is, you know, they're a social platform. It's like, hey, Oculus is ramping up this big social like platform with the voice over IP, the matchmaking stuff. They're kind of ramping that stuff up. So it's just, it was timing. It's like, hey, you know what? Why not a co-op game? Because co-op in VR is awesome. And we really found that from even the simple stuff in like Dead and Buried, when you're sitting around the card table and you're giving each other high fives, you're throwing cards at each other, you're like that kind of thing. Just that quick, like just moment to moment of like, I'm here, you're there, we're talking, and it's just nothing's going on. There's that cool moment. So it's like, yeah, we got to make it co-op.
It's like everything becomes more fun in VR. Everything you try.
Yeah,
like.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, hey, you got other people here to experience it with you. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I have to say, like I'm not a massive like competitive multiplayer guy, but I really enjoy co-op games, you know. So when Star Trek Bridge Crew came out, like I really enjoyed that, but you know, I definitely felt the limitations of the game because I wanted to go on these adventures with these people, you know. I didn't just want to pilot the ship with them. So that's kind of where From Other Suns takes over, and you can kind of explore other ships and, you know, get on that teleporter and teleport to another station, you know, with your buddies. And that was really nice. So in terms of like the co-op nature of the game, like did you sort of take a lot of cues from Star Trek Bridge Crew, or was that something that you sort of enjoyed as a team, like, or was this like in development way before that game was even released?
Yeah, it was. We were well into development on From Other Suns before that was even mentioned or even announced.
Right.
And it was funny because the original pitch for it was very much like the safe, like kind of like Chronos, like one of the biggest like pillars of making that game was we want to make a game that everyone who has a VR headset can play. There's not like, oh, well, you could play it, but you're going to get sick, that kind of thing. We wanted to make it. That's why we went with the camera mode that we did. And it kind of like also helped sell the world and really put you in the world still. But it was like from a motion sickness or VR sickness standpoint, it was a very safe game. So we kind of were like, that's the same thing with the Dead and Buried. It was meant to be very much like, hey, it's stationary. You can stand up, you can duck, but it's like you're not moving around. So again, we wanted to go kind of safe at first, and we were very much making a Bridge Crew type game. And it was just like, it just wasn't clicking internally. We were just like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, hey, what's going on? Sitting over there. Hey, what's going on? You're waving to the people, but just like being in this stationary thing was really weird to us. And so I think it was like our presence, like, hey, check out what I just did. And he just put it, he like hooked in locomotion, and it was like, oh my God, this is the game we want to make.
Yeah.
Away missions, that's where it's at. You don't want to just sit on a ship and just wave at each other. You want to go out and start doing stuff. And then it became a very different thing. And it was funny because we were in that state like of hey, we're going to do full locomotion, and we'll come up with what we end up calling comfort mode in the end. So people can still play it if they don't have their full VR legs. And we were months into that new one, and then they announced Bridge Crew, and we're like, whew, glad we changed it. We don't want to because it came out, I think, 8 months before we ended up shipping. So it's like, man, it was really bad. Like, here's a 8 months later. Yeah. So
yeah. But no, I admire you for doing that full locomotion thing and having that mode where you can just walk around freely, because I think that is something that now, as people that have been on in VR for a long time, is what they're really asking for, you know, and just to have the option, you know, it is just brilliant. You know, people are now asking for Onward on the Oculus platform as well, and you've got Killing Floor Incursion that did the same as well, like implemented both forms of locomotion. And I think that is what people are crying out for right now, is free locomotion. And I'm someone that actually gets susceptible to it sometimes in some games, but you know, from Other Suns, it's a very, very comfortable game to play in free locomotion, I find.
The thing I was going to say is, John, people might not know what camera mode you're talking about, so I think you're talking about the third person ghosts, where your character moves to a location. Can you describe that? What's that called internally as well?
We just call it comfort mode internally, but basically what it is you're stationary, you're first person, you can shoot, you basically have all the functionality of full locomotion, but as soon as you push forward on the left stick to move, your character pops out in front of you, and you can control them out in front of you, a lot like Chronos. And then as soon as you let go of the stick, the camera pops to that location. So it's a very like quick snap. There's not a smooth transition, because we found that made people sick too. So it's very much intended to be this mode where it's like, hey, you know what? It's not the most ideal way to play, but it's totally fun, totally legitimate way to play. So that was early on.
Interesting that you said that it was kind of to some extent kind of Chronos-like, because I had a question for you related to Dead and Buried, which was, did the gunplay happen to come from Dead and Buried? Because I didn't know the connection between the two, and that there was gunfire at the middle before, but I've got to say they feel very similar.
Yeah, I mean, we took a lot what we learned, we really like the reload action, because it was one of those things of, we even simplified it even more, because in Dead and Buried it was mostly like flick down then flick back up, but man, like you play some long sessions, you're gonna feel it right here in the wrists. So we wanted to make something a little bit more simple than that, so it is kind of just a flick down or a flick up. So it's because we found that you reload a lot in from Other Suns.
I actually wonder, like, can you? I'm sure you guys have some stats on that, but like, how big is the player base that really uses like the walking locomotion compared to the people that go for the comfort mode? Like, do you have the feeling that there is a big audience right now for walking locomotion, for like really like thumbstick running around?
It seems like it. I mean, it's really, a lot of it's anecdotal till we get some of the like analysis stats back, because it seems like we hear a lot of people like, oh, we love the full locomotion, but then every press event that we've done, most people choose comfort. So it's kind of strange, where it's like maybe they're just like, hey, I don't want to even chance it to get sick. But it's definitely, it seems like that's, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a 50-50 split, but there's definitely, I think both are valid. And we even had, after we did our open beta, we added like 3 more move type of options. One's like forward on the stick, which we call like seated mode. So it's like you can do push forward and you start going forward, but you can still look around, because the default locomotion is, we found the safest was push forward, and it's wherever you're looking will automatically start adjusting and tweening towards the direction you're going. We also do basically wherever your controller's pointing will, like whatever forward is, which that way, which is similar to Onward. We have that as well.
The first thing that I do in any title that I start is turn off all of the comfort features. Like I absolutely don't like that. Sometimes I even get the feeling that they like make me more sick. I really don't like comfort features, and I actually prefer just, you know, the regular ones. But I guess I'm just like one of those like weird folks. I also, because we were talking about co-op games, I love playing co-op games with like friends of mine, like, you know, the people that are online now. But I absolutely despise playing with other people. Like, I mean, maybe I'm just like weird like that. I absolutely despise other people. Yeah, I mean,
I feel privileged.
We haven't.
I mean, at least in VR chat, it's fun, right? I mean,
yeah, of course. But I find that something interesting that you said, like, oh, you know, there was a lot of like question for like co-op games, because I always get the impression that there's like a lot of people asking for like, you know, solid single player experiences. Is there a reason why you say like, I really, I mean, of course I understand when you say like co-op is like cool because you can like interact with each other, but is there really already like a player base in virtual reality to have like people who don't have VR friends to be, joining in game together?
Yeah, I think like I mean that was a big thing from us that we did learn from Dead and Buried. I think it's basically it's because the VR market's so small that the people that do want to play the co-op or even the PvP aspects of it, it just starts to shrink when the next big game comes out. So that's why we made From Other Suns completely like it's focused to be scalable. Like one person can. That's how I always play personally. I play single player.
You hate people too.
And then, but. I don't want people killing my dudes on my ship. I can't have that. But yeah, so it's definitely like because we wanted to make it so it's like because I know as games come and go, like the online communities, kind of they ebb back and forth between like, hey, there's a big flux in, and then it starts to fall off. So that's why we definitely wanted to make it where it's like, hey, it's totally playable. Single player, 2-player, or 3-player, and it all scales.
I think that's a great choice. I think that's a great choice that you like keep that in mind. That there's weird people like me that like don't like to play with other people sometimes.
Doesn't play well with others.
But how is that for you guys? Because I mean, you worked on Dead and Buried. I really enjoyed that game, but after a while, it became kind of like a ghost town. People leave that game and they go to the next one. How is it for you guys? Because I mean, you make a very nice game. You really spend a lot of time on it. Maybe you got some DLCs ready to go as well. But then after a while, you see like, yeah, well, I'm not sure how many people still check this out in a way. Like, how is it for you guys? Because it seems to be normal in the VR industry right now that it happens, but it's kind of strange as well because some games you're like, maybe I should play that after a year, but then it's almost impossible to play. So if you want to experience a multiplayer, you need to do it in the first few weeks because then it's over, And with you guys, you have, of course, a longer lifespan with being in the box with the Rift, of course, but how is that for you guys in a way?
Yeah, we definitely found that that it did teeter off as I don't know I can't remember which release it was, and I'm not blaming them. It's just like, hey, people want to jump to the next big, multiplayer game. So that was again that really informed a lot of the decisions with From Other Suns because we ended up having to go back and patch in basically like the Horde mode is one of the modes we primarily focused on, which was at the time like a novel thing because there wasn't a lot of them. Now that's pretty much every game now it seems like has a Horde mode. But it was that thing of like it required 4 people, and it was like if you can't find 4 people, you can't play. I think we actually had it down to it could be 3 or 4, but then we eventually made it where you could be single player. And then the other thing that we found too was early on it was you had I think we shipped this way was that you basically like I want to play shootout or I want to play this or I want to play a specific mode, and obviously like you already have a smaller player base because it's VR, but then all of a sudden for a single game you're even compartmentalizing the people playing the game. It's like, oh well, here's all your shootout people over here, here's your Horde people here, and they're both waiting for games. So we ended up making like a unified queue, and it just kind of would rotate through, and it would let you kind of like you kind of get a sampling that way. Again, it's not the most ideal way. That's why there's like one way to play From Other Suns. It's like you get in and you try to get to Earth kind of thing. But from there, it's the other thing too is that like you can play at any point. Like I want to play single player, and oh my buddy just came online, invite him in. So that was another big thing because in like Dead and Buried, it required everybody to be there at the start. Like so, it's waiting for people to start or to join the game to start. So there's nothing to do. So it's definitely like you could play for an hour and a half by yourself, and your buddy comes online, they jump right in your game. It's just seamless. They're one of your crew members now, and then you just go from there. So that was a lot of that stuff, and knowing that like that there's the people that play with a group of friends and only the group of friends, like you, Roddy, for example, and then there's the people that are, hey, I'm just going to jump in with whatever, or I just want to play single player. It's like we wanted to make a valid experience for all of those player types.
Actually, John, the point you just mentioned about, so I used to run a gaming community, and I found all my members online through different games, whatever it was. And so having a conduit to meet people is a really important thing to me, like hugely important. It's the reason I game as social gaming experiences. As I said, I met my wife that way. So, like I used to run across people like playing DayZ, for instance, and I'd meet a person and we'd be running along together. And then that guy gets shot, and I'd be like, damn, that was a friend, and now I can't have that friend because I never took his details. From Other Suns is a little bit like that. You got the drop-in, you're like, and you're just crewed with somebody. If you're reliant or dependent on them, that's a really important part, and there's not that many games who do it well. But I found that was one of my first attractions when I was playing the open beta, was just this kind of like drop-in feature of you can just make buddies with anybody. So I really like that.
So one question I've got about that, because say someone jumps into the game and you get to a certain point, and I suppose we should sort of warn that there might be some spoilers ahead. So I'll put that warning out there now. So I'll keep some of this as generic as I can. But say if you unlock something and it's my game, and Zim jumps in, and then we unlock it together. Do we both unlock that item, or is it just the person that hosts the game as such?
So that was a big thing, especially because we wanted to figure out a way. There was a lot of internal discussion. There was trying to figure out like what's the right way to get because we wanted to have unlocks and we wanted progression, but because there's not like you don't have a static character. Like the whole, again, for the people that don't know, like the game is very much an FTL mixed with like a Borderlands or a Destiny, where it's meant to be punishing. And difficult, and you should kind of eke out an existence in it. And so you're going to die a lot, and we didn't want to upfront put a lot of people like, I'm going to go spend 20 minutes in the character creator and then play the game and die 10 minutes later. So so what we have is everything tied to the Oculus achievements. And so most of the stuff is tied to amount of kills. Or missions completed. So like one of the early factions you meet are these pirates, and if I think it's a couple hundred, and
150 I think is the first milestone.
Is that the first one? Okay, so it's like 100,
then 300.
Yeah, and then you kill that many pirates, and you unlock a legendary when you're hosting, and it's only when you're hosting, because there wasn't really a good way around that. Because like, let's say I'm playing and my buddy's playing, and I have a level 2 and he has a level 3, and they're the same kind of gun. Do they both spawn? It gets kind of weird because every gun has its own slot in the captain's room. But there is the shared achievement idea. So if you're in a game and somebody's off shooting pirates and you're just goofing around the ship, you're still getting credit for it. They might have had 149 and they killed that 150, and you're like 2. You're gonna be 3 pirate kills, but you're not going to both get the gun, but the gun will show up on the ship and you can fight over it.
That's why the gun appeared. I couldn't figure that out because we got a certain item that dropped off of a character that was gold in color, and we put it somewhere, and it's still sitting on my someplace. And aside from that, the gun appeared, and I wasn't sure. I was like, is this a bug? Because I guess that's an unlock.
Yeah, but this is the funny thing, because when we played Zim, there was a section where me and Panda were off on a mission somewhere, and I think you were on the ship because you were the last human remaining. And for those that don't know or haven't played the game, like if you die with the 3-man team, like you respawn as a robot, right? So you can die as many times as a robot. That's absolutely fine. But the last remaining human, that becomes your priority to protect them at all costs, because as soon as they die, then it's game over. So Zim was back on our ship, just tooling around while me and Panda were off on an adventure together. And Zim was going through the captain's log, and he was reading through all these achievements and what you had to do. And a lot of people may not know this, but that's kind of where all the information is as to what you need to do to unlock these items. Is that right, John?
Yeah, pretty much. We're big fans of the kind of Dark Souls high level game mentality of it should be in the world. We don't want to beat people over the head. We our goal, when we made the tutorial, which is a little long, but I think it needs to be to get all the systems. We didn't want to say, because we had people even internally I don't think this is a spoiler, but you can teleport over to a pirate ship if you want, and they're like, you need to put that in the tutorial. People need to know that. And it's well, do they? Because isn't that more fun to discover that yourself in gameplay? So there's a lot of stuff
tutorial, John. I don't remember it. I don't remember that being the tutorial.
No, I'm saying it's not. We had discussions internally. People were like, it should be in there. If you can do it in game, it should be in tutorial. It's it's the, and obviously
that was the right decision. I had that moment where we found out, and I was like, holy shit, that is amazing. We can actually go over there and take their stuff. It's one of the best parts of the game.
Really, we wanted to keep the tutorial functionality, just to be functional. Here's how you reload your gun. Here's how you use a stim pack. I guess the nitty gritty of how you do the things with the touch, because a lot of that stuff isn't intuitive. But then there's a lot of cool things that you can do where it's you mess around. You're like, I can do this. That's cool. We had a lot of those moments even internally with people that weren't super close to the design of the game. The artists that were working on the game, they're like, hey, I just did this. I think it's broken. I'm like, no, you figured that out. And they're like, oh my God, it's amazing. I can't believe we can do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give spoilers, so I won't get real specific. But there's a lot of those moments, I think, for people.
Yeah.
And then, but then it's like,
sorry,
real quick. I just want to say, like, so like even the tutorial, like the or the achievement stuff, it's like it's on a disc, so it's a physical item. You have to actually manually put it in there, and you scroll through it. There's also like basically a codex for all the enemies you encounter, and you can find a little bit about their history there. And then there's also a ship manual, which goes into more description of how the systems work. So it's definitely, we wanted all that stuff to be much more in-world. Like, so it's also, so I don't think anybody wants to sit there in VR and just be talked to for like 30 minutes of like, this is how the ship works. But the information's there. Yeah. So like people that really want to get into it, really understand it, it's there.
Talking about the tutorial, my first impression of the game was actually from watching Zim's channel. Like he did a stream of it, of the tutorial, and he started off. And just to give like an idea of how hard the game can be, he's already ducking there. He died in the tutorial. Yeah, exactly.
The one enemy they sent you, I couldn't figure out how to.
GG, man. GG. What the heck?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't know that.
Thanks, Rowdy.
Just exposed.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome, buddy.
That shouldn't have been possible.
What? How?
Well, I'm special that way, John.
I mean, like,
special skill.
He's got really low health and does really low damage. We're like, surely no one will ever die to this guy.
Well, there you go. Achievement unlocked.
So one of
the question I had was, I always ask this to developers who've just released a product because it's a really fun question to ask. What bug from the development cycle stands out to you as something that we'll never get to see, or maybe don't know about, or maybe even turned into a feature, but I'm kind of more interested in the ones that we don't know about, bugs that were squashed that were kind of fun for a bit of time and didn't make it to the final cut.
Well, there's actually, it wasn't a bug as much as it was kind of sort of a feature we didn't really fully think out, and it's probably one of my favorites was, so we actually, you could take other people's weapons. So you could like pull the weapon off of them at any point. So somebody could be going to a mission on the teleporter and like, all right, I'm gonna go, and then you just like reach over and just pull the guns away, and then they're basically naked on the mission.
I'm definitely gonna do that now.
But I mean, we cut that one because that was really frustrating and really trolly. So we just had to cut. But that was one of those features where it's like we didn't really think of the full like
ramifications of it.
Yeah. Until we started playing, we're like, this isn't awful. This is impossible. This is so frustrating.
But I think that's one of those learning curve elements. I used to see it, well, just in the curve from coming like from the early DK1, DK2 days. I've seen more VR titles do it, and I think it's really important. I give feedback, critical feedback to VR devs, and one of the things I say to them is consider horseplay as a really important component to your game. Now, I think you're right. You've got to do it, and you've got to meter it, right? You can't just have it wreck your game experience. But being able to kind of dick about is actually half of the fun of VR. Like anyone who goes into a VR room, what's the first thing you do? You grab all the items on the desk and chuck them all about the place, or burn the curtains, or whatever. You just do what you can't do in real life. But I think that's a fun one to hear about. So thanks for that.
And I guess another thing too is we'd get bugs for this, which was funny. Where like you can go onto a station, get a key card that will open a door, but then you could throw that key card away like down one of the pits, and you just can't get through that door if you don't have a hackatron. So it's like, they're like, this is a bug, you need to fix it. It's like, no, there's consequences to actions. That's one of the coolest things about VR. It's like, you're really there. Would you do that in real life? It never actually gates you from like not being able to, like, you're not stuck. You just, well, can't complete that mission. I guess I'll jump back on my ship and go somewhere else. Yeah. So that was definitely one of those funny things of like, we keep getting that kickback is like, hey, this is a bug. It's like working as intended.
Yeah. So is there any Easter eggs that you can kind of share? Like something that, again, sort of is kind of maybe tucked away, that you could just discover maybe, and it's kind of like a little Easter egg in game that maybe refers to another game that you've developed or something else?
There's quite a few things like that. They're pretty hard to find. So they're the best. I can give a little hint. The best thing to do is check out like dead end security rooms are the most likely place for those.
Okay.
But there's some stuff that's referential to the previous work. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Cool. And there was another thing, like you said about teleporting onto enemy ships while you're sort of in negotiations, and then kind of like robbing them blind. We had occasions where we did that quite a lot, but what we'd find is that when we teleported across, the crew on the other ship wouldn't even notice the fact that we were there. So we could kind of steal all their guns, and they would just be walking around doing their business, and we're like, yeah, we're stealing all your stuff, but they wouldn't actually retaliate in any way. Was that something that was planned, or is that something that you're going to patch out in future, or what's your plan for that?
I guess was it a pirate ship or a merchant ship? Because merchants don't go aggressive unless you try to steal their stuff or shoot them. They're kind of like, whatever, it's our guns. But pirates should definitely.
Oh right, I think it was pirates actually. We had that with, because we even went to the captain's room, and Zim was pushing him around, the captain, and I was telling the captain, oh, we're stealing all your stuff, dude. Like, what are you gonna do about it? And he didn't do anything about it. So it was interesting. I wasn't quite sure like what the deal was with that.
That might have been a merchant, because pirates are like pirate captains especially are very aggressive. They'll turn and start shooting you because hey, they're merchants. They just want to make a buck. They're like, hey, maybe you'll still buy something from me. So they won't turn aggressive unless you either fire on their ship, shoot one of them. Because I was watching we were all watching one of Zim's early beta videos, and there was the one where I think a bunch of guys grabbed all the guns. And there was the characters with the shields, and then we're like, oh my gosh, they're gonna shoot him, aren't they? They're gonna shoot him, and everybody's just like holding their breath. And then somebody shot them, and then they all went aggro. Yeah, because they won't go. Like, you can take their guns, they're like, yeah, whatever. But as soon as you go and try to do an aggressive move against them, they would definitely turn on you real quick.
Right.
But we did find a few, Mike. I think you're right. There's a few times when we saw guys even in shields where, and I think it is probably a bug, because you'd shoot one of them. Right, and you go to another room, and the other guy's just kind of standing there, and you'd be pushing him around or shooting him or whatever, and sometimes they wouldn't even react at all, and you're shooting the guy. Like,
well, we'll definitely
that kind of stuff. So I think there's a few things in there. I mean, there's a few crash to desktop bugs at the moment, but it's early days, and generally the support is great. And I have to say, I tried it out for science. I tried touch controls. You know, I've clocked probably 20 hours in touch, and I tried Revive, and I tried the Vive controllers, and I was like, this is just like, people ask me from the Vive community, they're like, should I buy the game and play Revive and do it that way? My recommendation to them was actually don't bother. Like, wait or buy a Rift or something, because the touchpad controls, I don't expect you to comment on it, but it was of no fun to me at all. I had to actually go back to the Rift, because having a physical analog controller is really a positive experience. I mean, being able to jump in and out of corners and stuff and do anything but that was very frustrating.
It's playable though. I mean, I did it. I played it with Revive.
I also, like, the first time I played the game, I hadn't even tried it with my Rift yet, but I had no problems with it. But it depends. Like, if you play a lot with Revive, you know that you always need to hit like certain middle parts of your touchpad. But yeah, let's say it's pretty tricky. But in the end, like, I played it with my Rift. And what I really like about the game, and this is nothing to do with the gameplay itself, I really like the characters. Like, I really have the feeling that we have like a personal kind of thing going on where like random people, they really stare into my eyes. I'm like, okay, hello, what do you want from me? You know, you want to be friends? You know, so it really starts to get like, it's comedy start in a way where I'm like, hey, who are you? Let's talk and maybe do something together. I mean, yeah, the first time I played it, they blew up the ship, and I didn't even have a chance to like do something about it.
That's why I hate playing with other people.
Sometimes it depends. I mean, it can be so like that's classic gaming, right? You have like a Russian guy who doesn't speak English, and then you get someone that doesn't have a microphone, even that there's a microphone on the Rift, but okay. And then you get like a mix of people, so that can be very challenging, of course, but it can be very funny too, you know, where everyone wants to go everywhere. Well, with friends, it's more like a controlled thing, you know, even that you troll around as well. So I think with random people, it also works. Of course, you're not gonna get like that far in a way, but it depends. Sometimes you meet like an all-star team, right? Yeah. So it sometimes happens where you're like, wow, I have never played with these people before, but this is great, you know? So yeah, well done. I mean, the characters, I really like them. They're really nice. Yeah.
So I've got some questions from the community, because obviously this isn't live, so we don't have our normal live chat audience to ask us questions. But I asked some people in the Oculus Reddit and the Vive Reddit to ask some questions for you guys. So they've got some questions for you, but there's just a couple more that I want to ask myself before I move on to their questions. And that is, From Other Suns is a bit of an unusual name. And I understand, I've heard a rumor that wasn't the original name that you come up with. Is that right?
Yeah, that wasn't the one we wanted to go with originally.
So can you share that with us, or is that top secret?
I think I'm trying to think if it ever came out. I don't want to get in trouble. But it was basically a name very similar, but it was another VR app came out prior to that, and we had to change it. But we had everything internally is FOS in terms of our code base, and our editor and everything is always referred to as FOS. So we were just like racking our brains, like, oh, what do we want to call it? What do we want to call it? We went some really weird ways. And it was like, actually, it was funny because we had the announcement trailer was coming out, and it was literally the day before, and we're like, how about this? And we're like, oh, cool, from Other Suns. Fits FOS, that's cool. We don't have to change any code or any other systems to know what the heck we're talking about now. So, I mean, most games go through code names, but we had a pretty early on, we had a name we thought we were going to go with for sure, but that's how it is. Always
was the previous name cooler than this one, or like
it was different? I think it was probably cooler, but From Other Suns started to grab me, especially with the storyline. I think it fits, like the idea of the jump drive at the beginning, and you're going somewhere else, and these guys follow you back, and they're from Other Suns. You know, they're not familiar Suns.
It's about the ones that didn't make the cut, actually, that were discussed, that were just awful. It wasn't like flowers or skeletons or something horrible like that.
Yeah, they were just like almost generic space stuff, and they just didn't have any personality. So we definitely wanted to have something personality-wise. What
I'll do is I'll ask the viewers when they do actually live stream this to put their suggestions in the comments, and then we can see which one's the funniest they come up with, because I'm sure they'll have some hilarious ones. They always do. So then I've got one more sort of question before we move on to the community questions. And this is a bit spoilery, just if you're listening or watching the show. So there is a battle with the Archivist, which is kind of like a GLaDOS type character. And like the first time I encountered this character, like I was on my own and I got absolutely murdered and completely destroyed by it. And then I came in again and discovered it with a team, and we finally like took it out. And I was just like, oh, this is amazing. We finally beat the Archivist. It felt like an amazing challenge. And then the character died, and then I was like, well, where's my reward? And it seems like, I don't know if this is right, but you don't get actually a reward for beating it. Is that right?
You should. That sounds like a bug.
It's not a huge. It's not a chest of gold anyway, Mike. You get you get a little bit of scrap and stuff like. You get some salvage and a few other bits. Like I got 35 salvage, 1 fuel, and 1 munition for it when I beat it.
Okay,
that's like standard. Yeah. Did somebody contact you? I thought somebody was like, "Hey, cool, thanks for doing that." I can't remember how that mission played out.
Oh, I know what happens. Yes. Something special happens after you do it. You do get a reward for it. Anyway, I won't spoil it, because it was a cool boss.
It might have been because like we died shortly after we beat that boss. I think we did one more jump and then we died. So like it would make sense if there was like an incoming call and you finally got something for it. But at the time I was just like, we spent 20 minutes taking this boss down. I was like hoping for like a golden like shield or something like crazy. But yeah.
How about well done?
Exactly. And the back. Yeah. So
the roguelike nature of this game though, is really good. And it's really funny because there's some people who have said they've beaten it like really fast. I've spent 26 hours at the game and I haven't beaten it yet. It's like
that is weird.
But again, I did get killed in the tutorial. So
yeah. And the thing is, what I found with playing with Zim is he does not like to negotiate with anyone. So if there's an option to negotiate, he's like, no, let's go and mess him up. I'm like, come on, dude, we can negotiate with them. He's like, no. So that's probably where we were going wrong, dude. But I'm looking forward to jumping back in and playing some more of this. But here's some questions from the community. So these guys are from the Oculus Reddit. So this is XWeeze. He asks, any post-launch support plans yet, DLC, etc.?
We haven't really discussed that externally yet. We're just kind of taking a wait and see kind of attitude to see what the demand is and what that would look like. We'll definitely we're planning like at least a patch in the near future to kind of fix some of the issues that have been coming up for people. That's the big thing with releasing a game is we can test it as much as we can internally with like our 3 testers and externally with like a group of, I forget how many. But even then, it's like once you release into the wild, just people are going to find things that you're like, wow, there was no way for us to find that, because there's just
of course
a lot of moving parts, especially in a roguelite where there's a lot of things. So we definitely have something coming up soon just to kind of like address some of those issues and a couple balance things, hopefully. So
yeah, and if people wanted to give you feedback on the game, like where's the best place that they could reach you, like to sort of give you constructive criticism or feedback?
Yeah, we have we set up a Discord that a lot of the developers are just in most times. You can just go to foss.gunfiregames.com, and then that's just to the invite. It's just fos.com or .gunfiregames.com.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I said, that's where a lot of the developers are. We got guys in there, like some of our programmers and QA guys, answering technical questions. I'm in there a lot, answering like, hey, is this supposed to be in? It's like, yeah, you found something cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a feedback forum. We have we have a spoilers channel, a general chat, a lot of the standard stuff you find in a Discord. But it's all run by us, so we're in there.
Nice.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Yeah.
I like that.
People can find games too in there. Sorry.
No, you go first, John.
We have a channel too for like looking for game kind of thing too. So if people are like, hey, I don't have any friends on right now, but I'm looking for a multiplayer game right now.
Rowdy, hear that? Rowdy, if you can find friends there.
You can find randos there. It's cool.
Yeah.
Everybody on the channel is really
Yeah.
Nice.
So the next question is from actually Cass and Cherry, who are friends of the team. So they ask any plans for character creation in future. So I know you touched on it earlier that you didn't want to do a character creation and then get killed instantly afterwards, and you've invested this time into a character. But any plans for maybe implementation of that in the future?
Then again, it'd be funny to see Kaz and Cherry make a character for like 20 minutes and then die like immediately. I mean, that would be funny though. I definitely watched that video.
Yeah, I definitely think that is pretty much what happens. So that's our biggest concern. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it definitely, in some ways, I feel like it kind of almost goes against the randomness. Like everything else is so random in the universe that just, hey, you know what? Like it's funny too, because sometimes you'll get like a crew of all guys or crew of all girls, and it's I don't know. Whenever that happens, it's kind of fun. It's like, oh look, it's all dudes or it's all ladies, and it's kind of that interest. Is kind of, to me, it's just one more of the randomness of the universe that's kind of fun. And again, the goal is to not get people attached to their characters, because their characters are quite disposable. It's just they're hopping body to body like Quantum Leap just to try to get back to Earth.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing actually, because when me, Zim, and Panda played, we were all girls. So it became like the Charlie's Angels of the stars, and we're like, oh, we're going on a mission now. I was like, ooh, like all running to the teleporter. It was really funny, like kind of playing out that role as well. So it made it even more fun in that sense.
Yeah, the funny thing is that you mentioned that because I play with Lonely Viper and Raiderhead, and Raiderhead, he had something wrong with his microphone, so he sounded like a robot almost the entire playthrough, but he was a robot as well. It made like such hilarious gameplay, because he went rogue, of course, on the ship. We barely did any jumps because it was still in the beta. We just like messed around on the ship, like I think for like a good 2 hours, like just chasing Raiderhead, and then Raiderhead went rogue, and it was so much good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like that randomness really invites people to also role play a bit together.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So our next question is from Gunfire Games. we want to ask John what size his RVCA shirts are.
Always medium and always 50-50. So
I don't even know what that means.
Polyester. I always wear RVCA shirts.
Oh, okay. So it's like an in joke.
It's a recession collection. It's I think it's like the Greek word for clothing or something. It's pronounced ruka usually, but yeah, I don't care about any of that. It's just I like how they fit, and I like that they're 50-50 blend. They're really comfortable.
So it's almost like your signature uniform, a bit like a Mark Zuckerberg, like he always wears the same clothes. Is that kind of the similar?
Pretty much. I'm like Batman. I just like a whole closet full of
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny when I saw that pop up in the Oculus room, I did laugh. I was like, that's got to be in.
That's our producer, Ben Gabbard. So
Oh, well, shout out to you, Ben. Thanks for the awesome question.
Don't shout him out. No, he doesn't. No, don't encourage him.
So here we go. One from Advertiser. He says, all of the locations in the beta felt a bit confined. Is there any plans for any outdoor locations coming up?
I mean, that was something we had planned early on. It just came down to just time and resources. So it's unfortunately like everything is on a station. You know, that could be something we'd look into if we did DLC. It's definitely something that we were really excited about the idea of doing. It's just time. Yeah. Certainly, like, you know, for the future, and I know probably Zim is looking at me and like nodding the same way. Like, going to another planet would just be next level. You know, like if there was DLC like that coming out in the future, that'd be something I'd definitely be interested in.
Actually, can I spin that off and just to an offshoot? Because obviously there's a spiritual connection to FTL. Is there anything that FTL does or did that you guys wanted to do but couldn't?
I'm trying to think.
Heavy question.
Oh, I know what it is. So you have basically an FTL, like if you are just like, you meet a pirate and then you do the whole, no, I'm going to start shooting you. They pop up a message like maybe a third of the way through their health, or they have a third left. And they're like, hey, we surrender. Please take these supplies. That was one of the things early on. We're like, yeah, we should totally be able to have people surrender. But because FTL is a single screen, like, and it's all basically UI. This UI can stop everything else that's happening. But how are you going to stop, like, if I'm over there just pressing the buttons crazy and they're like, hey, you know, you're going to blow them up before you can get over an answer. So it was one of those things of like, that's a really cool, like, thing for like somebody to surrender. But just conceptually, it didn't work in VR because it's like, well, maybe I'm hearing explosions, so I don't hear the call coming in. You can't really stop what they're doing and pop up with a message because that's kind of obtrusive. So it was one of those things of like that kind of like it would add a little bit more, I think, to like the dynamic of the ship-to-ship combat. But it was just something that it didn't make sense in the way the game works.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's the other thing. Sorry, Mike, I'll just ask one more question real quick. Because we've been playing this game a lot, 3-player, and one thing that I couldn't understand is you've got kind of the 3 stations in the captain, well, on the bridge, and the one back right, which is like the map of the ship. I was always wondering why you couldn't lock the teleporter from there, why that was a design decision. Because I personally do a lot of legging it back and forth, wanting to see where we're going, and then wanting to lock whatever ship we've come across. So I wondered why that was. It was not included in that panel.
I mean, that's supposed to be the kind of op station to like command people and to do things more than anything else. I mean, the teleport thing was more of like making that connection one-to-one of like, you're kind of committing, I'm going to walk over here, I'm going to hit the button, kind of like waiting for an elevator sort of thing of like, it's like that one-to-one of like, and then you get the power on when it's on and kind of that feedback. And even like people are like, oh, is this when we've had the question before, it was like, oh, is this where you're actually loading the station? Like because there's that delay, like when you do it. And it's not, it's supposed to be that breath of like, oh shit, I forgot to recharge my weapons. I better go do that real quick, as opposed to it being instantaneous and you just jump right on. You're like, oops, forgot that. So it's supposed to be this breather of like, hey guys, let's gear up. Let's, you know, so it's meant to be that moment for pause or like, oops, I forgot to heal. Let me go do that real quick. It's supposed to kind of just give you that dramatic pause before, you know, you go out.
That's the design. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yep. So we've got a question from VIP3RLL, and that is, any plans in the future for PvP?
That's Vive.
You can PvP now on the player ship. Just start shooting your friends.
You can. That is true. So friendly fire is enabled as default, so you can actually murder your own teammates.
Grenades work too. Grenades work really well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was playing with some other friends of the channel recently, Viver and Paradise Decay, and Swee just literally picked up a grenade and just dropped it right in front of him, and then me and PD just like split and just watched him blow himself up. It was quite comical. But yeah, so so there is PvP right now, so you know it's just friendly fire essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so this is kind of a bit of a random question, but from Pingu598, what are your thoughts on microtransactions like loot boxes? Not necessarily in from Other Suns, but in general.
I mean, I think they can serve a good purpose. I think they're right now everybody's hot on hating them. But I think they I mean, it really is like, it's a lot of reasons that like games go free to play, because they find that like if you look at a game like Star Wars Old Republic, where it was kind of faltering when under the old subscription model, it went free to play and actually became more successful because it was all loot based at that point, where you've got these people that, I mean, they're not even the whale tier, that the mythical whale that everybody talks about. Like, this person's spending $1,000. But there's the idea that like, hey, you know what? This person really likes this game. That probably would be, it all evens out, all things considered. They're probably spending $25 a month between loot boxes or, you know, cosmetics or whatever, where previously they were only spending 15. There's like, it's this weird thing of like, well, if people want to spend more on the game, they can, and it gives them that option. So it's really weird. I know it's super strange too. There's this cultural divide where I know like in China, it's actually changing though, which is interesting. But there's this idea of you should be able to pay to win. Why wouldn't you? You have money. I think there's a cultural thing of you're better. I'm better because I have money. So let me prove it in game. Where it's kind of, it is shifting more towards the Western concept of like cosmetics are fine, but you know, better should be determined by skill, not money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, in my opinion, like cosmetic wise, it's fine. I mean, as long as the gameplay is not getting affected. I'm playing a lot of Rocket League myself. I'm throwing at least like $25 into that game like every month to get like some new stuff. But it's cosmetic. So in the end, everyone can be like on the same skill level as me. I'm not getting better because I'm wearing a nice shiny hat. But I'm wondering, do you see this like happening soon in VR as well, where we get like microtransactions on a whole new level in a way?
I would see. I can't imagine it not. I mean, phones have it, console games have it, PC games have it. I think it's just inevitable. It's really figuring out what that looks like and what's not gross for the end user. I think is what
how do you think that's gonna look like? Do you have like any prediction? Because I mean, in VR you can do so much more. Like right now, I played Call of Duty this week, and you need to look at someone opening a loot box to get extra XP. So that's like an achievement.
The social the social thing. That seems super weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. They gotta have good loot box opening animations first of all. Like Overwatch, probably one of the A class loot box experience. I don't know. It just depends. Like I think it depends on the game too. Like if it's a first person game, does hey I got a cool hat really matter if you can't see your character as much, or is it like check out these sweet gloves I got, or look at this cool dangle I have on my gun, or if it's more of like a third person.
Yeah, that's right. But in VR, you are the person, right? So you can look into a mirror and think like, oh, I got this nice armor because I paid for it. So yeah, there are like new possibilities for that. I'm not going to give more ideas to developers because in my opinion, this shouldn't be in VR yet because it's still growing. It would actually screw up the growth a bit in my opinion. But like cosmetic wise, yeah, I mean, that's not really harming anyone.
It actually was in there already. The one that, and I didn't like it, but it was in Eve Valkyrie, and they actually took a step backwards after they'd implemented a lot of the kind of microtransaction-y type stuff in there. So the more recent patches have kind of removed a lot of that from the game. They took a major step back. The other thing I would say, Nathie, just to that, on a platform basis, I'd totally expect that after the Oculus Connect announcements at a platform level, same kind of thing we're seeing in HTC Vive is, in Steam Home, you have all these little trinkets you can unlock by different games. That's a market straight off the bat. Anyone who's played Battlegrounds will know you get some gear or some specific clothing items, and wow, the amount of money you can spend on something that's rare.
No, but they start off. I mean, they start off easy, and I mean, casual games right now go really hardcore on it. They go really far, where it's almost impossible to get certain things. You need to spend like a lifetime to play with a certain character. Yeah, I'm just really wondering how fast this will progress within like VR in a way.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what happens, definitely. But like you say, I think the inevitable is coming.
I mean, right now it's starting already. I mean, we see pre-orders now where you can pre-order a VR game. I never pre-order games. I don't think it's smart. Always wait for the reviews and then buy a game. But yeah, you also see that happening right now. So yeah, we'll see. And I'm not sure if it was from Other Suns or another game, but you could get like a golden gun if you pre-ordered the game, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a nice way to get people in, of course, as long as it starts off.
I was gonna say, I think we were the first actually Oculus game to do that, and it was funny because it shows up as a microtransaction under the like description of the game, like this supports microtransactions. So there's some people on our Discord that were very worried what that meant. It's like, whoa, that's the only way you can get this pretty cool gun. So it was very much like it was like a first for the pre-order. So it's like, hey, you know, why not? Just it's kind of easy to do a golden gun. We can give it a cool new effect, and then you know something fun for people who were basically early supporters.
Yeah, because you also supported people that helped out in the open beta, right, with constructive feedback.
Yeah, like we definitely went through on Reddit and our Discord and a couple other social channels to see like people that were, you know, really passionate about the game. Because I mean, the VR community at this point, like that's what's important is like there's a very hardcore group of passionate folks like yourselves that like they were very much like on front line, like, hey, you know what, this happened, or hey, I'm having this problem, or hey, what if you did this? Like the movement stuff was a huge revelation for us, like because internally we either played comfort, like 2 dudes internally played comfort and everybody else played full locomotion, and we're like, this is good. And then there was like these requests for that and like, wow, we never thought of that. That's actually pretty easy. We just didn't know that was something people wanted. So we wanted to kind of thank people and we sent them out a free copy of the game.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice way of doing it. That's a really nice way of doing it. And I like the fact that you're open to all this feedback as well, like through your Discord and everything else. Exactly. It's very, very smart. So we've got 2 more questions to go. So this question is, will there ever, this is from the Vive Reddit, actually. This is from Fugazification, I think his name is. And he says, will there be 2-handed weapons added to the game in future?
Again, a never say never kind of thing. But currently, there's not really a plan for it. Internally, none of us really were excited about the feel of that. It always kind of feels awkward, and we've already had people like say like, hey, I can't hold my hands up for this long because I'm get tired or whatever. I'm like, that's even worse, is having to hold it like this constantly. So we kind of like the idea that you can kind of run around with your just hands down and just move around, just fire off shots, or have a shield, or just have like your mini map up and then have a gun on you. So there's like multiple ways to play like that. I mean, it's possible. It's just, it wasn't like something any of us internally were like, this is really awesome. You kind of need like at that point you need like aim down the sights, and we got a little crazy with our designs that didn't even work. At the end, we kind of realized like, oh, you can actually aim down the sights with these things, and we got that request a lot. But it's just like we went a little too crazy with the silhouettes, and they like some of the guns. It's like the barrel's here, but the top of the gun's here, so they would never line up, even if we did add some weird aim down the sights mode. So I think it's possible. So it was a conscious design move on your part to make it more accessible in a way, and easier to play for longer periods of time. Yeah, because I think a lot of like it's kind of funny. I always say it's like people that are sitting and playing, they kind of look at their characters look like they're kind of T-Rexing around because their arms are kind of out here. But it's just like that's how a lot of people play for long periods of time. I think if it's more of a short burst thing, two-handed weapons, like there was one in Dead and Buried in some of the stages, and it definitely is much more of a it's a more intense thing. But again, those were in the PvP maps, so it was like, you know, it was over in a couple minutes. It wasn't like I'm playing for hours like this, holding my hands and trying to shoot things. So I think that's the thing, like the community ask these kind of things without realizing the full ramifications of what they're asking for, because like you say, it can be very tiring. You know, like me and Zim, we played for like 2.5 hours straight, I think. Like time flew really quickly, but it can be quite exhausting afterwards. You're quite tired, and without realizing, you know, so yeah, it's interesting that's why you chose that path.
Adrenaline has a factor there as well, Mike.
Yeah, definitely.
But there was actually a related question I had about, because a lot of the first-person games have stabilization for the second hand possible. And I was wondering if kind of like an Onward or a BAM method, where if you chose to be going with a solo weapon, because some of the weapons are quite large. Yeah. If there was the possibility for second hand supporting it so you can steady your aim. Because sometimes there's enemies quite far away and you're trying to use an accurate weapon to hit them. You know, one hand can be a little bit unsteady. That was just an idea I threw out there because I noticed it in comparison with the other titles. No, definitely. There's I'm not saying it's not it's a not valid method. It's definitely interesting. And again, we could explore that. Like if we add more content down the road, we could try a two-handed game or two-handed gun just because people have been asking for it. It's definitely not something we're against. It's just at the time it's like, hey, you know what? These guns need to be functional this way, and it's kind of like what we were
internally what we were feeling like. This is exciting to have.
Yeah, I think it's a good design choice.
Dual wield, like it's like, why would I want this? I mean, there was a couple. I think there was one or two outliers who were quickly silenced that said they wanted two-handed guns. It's like, hey man, it's cool. And but it's like, yeah, it's definitely something we were conscious of, but it was like, we didn't really want to pursue it.
Okay. And then the final question is from LRJ, and he just says, will the game be an Oculus exclusive forever? Obviously, he's from the Vive Reddit, so he's a Vive man. You know, do you think it's going to be tied to the Oculus platform forever?
It's hard to say, probably, in some respect, but I don't know. It depends on what the future holds, really. It's being Oculus published is definitely makes it a high likelihood that it will be Oculus exclusive.
Of course, yeah. So have you guys got any more questions for John before I wrap this one up?
I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Or John, have you got any questions for us?
I don't know. What's got you most excited about VR in the coming? We're almost at the end of the year now. What's
just the social side of it. Yeah, like, you know, the social element, like, you know, when me and Zim played this game, and when we've played other games with this core group of people in the past, like, we tend to have such a blast together. And I think it's that feeling that you actually, although we're all in different places around the world, that we feel that they're next to us in a way. And that feeling of being with someone on an adventure is just amazing. And it's one of those things with VR that you can't really describe or tell someone about until they actually experience it and they feel it for themselves. I think that's the magic about VR, is that feeling of presence that you can be with other people. And for me, that's what makes me so excited about the whole VR platform in general.
For me, it's the immersion, really, of, like, you know, that you can literally say, like, you know what, tonight I'm going on an adventure, you know, and you put on your headset and you're in a completely different world and you get sucked into a story. I think that is something that, I mean, you can sucked into like regular 2D games and movies and all of that, but, you know, VR just takes that really to like the next level, and that is for me really the thing that excites me so much.
I would say the unexpected, and you know what I mean by that when I say that, John. In VR, when something comes at you and you didn't expect it, whatever that is, something jumping out of a wall, something that you found that you didn't realize was part of the experience, that for me is the part where, like, you can break the rules in VR. And so I would encourage developers to just do that. Like, okay, maybe you've got a train simulator game, but all of a sudden, boom, you've got karaoke in there for just no bloody reason. Like, sometimes those forays can be really valuable. And that's actually what I found in From Other Suns. And I won't, you know, give any spoilers. Those of you who've seen the clip will know it. But I have never been more terrified in a VR experience than I was in From Other Suns. I would just say that. I have never left into the air in another experience than I have From Other Suns.
I'll say that video got a lot of play in the office. We enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Glad you did.
Working as intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's like, it's just like meeting people you would usually not really meet in real life, in a way, you know, where it's like, people always point in a way in real life, like, you're looking like that, so I would never be friends with that person. And then when I meet people in VR, and then I start to also like follow them on Twitter, for example, because you like also want to socialize with them on a whole different level, then you realize sometimes you're like, but this is a person I would usually say like, yeah, but I don't like a person like that, or he's or she's looking like that. So like the judgment is gone in a way, you know? So you, like, VR lets you meet people that you would usually not really meet, you know? And like, again, about VR chat, I know I keep on rambling about it. It's like one of my favorite things of this year, but like, you know, then there's a guy, he's a penguin, okay? I'm just chilling with a penguin for an hour, and yeah, haha, it's funny, it's a penguin, it's not a person. But then he's like, hey, you want to play something else later? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then you jump into another game, and he's telling some more about himself. And then it starts to get interesting, where you really become friends in a way, you know? And yeah, so VR really brings new people together in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Social wise, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the show has run on super long, but this always seems to happen when we have developers on board, because it's always great communicating with developers about games and getting their perspective on things. So I'm just going to wrap up the show now. So just to remind you guys that this is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show that is live streamed every Saturday on Nathie's YouTube channel. You can tune into the show live at 4 p.m. in Europe, 3 p.m. in the UK, and 10 a.m. in the central US. If you missed the podcast, you can catch up with it every Sunday, where I upload the whole video to my own YouTube channel, Virtual Reality Oasis, or you can listen to the audio-only version, which is available on Google Play Music and on iTunes. So thanks for joining us for the show. I hope you enjoyed this one, and very, very special thanks to John for joining us as well. We really, really appreciate you coming on board. So thanks again to you, and we'll see you on next week's show. Thanks. And bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.